Hi, thanks for listening to Crafting Human and being part of our creative tribe. If this conversation resonates with you, please share the episode. Liking and subscribing helps me to keep telling the stories of the creatives who bring soul into our world. If you want me to dive deeper on anything discussed today, let me know in the comments. I'd love to bring those conversations to you in future episodes. Now, on with the show. Today on Crafting Human, we are diving into one of the most universal elements that stirs the human spirit, water. My guest has spent a lifetime shaping its movement, sound, and emotion into living works of art. Jim Garland is the founder and design director of Fluidity Design Consultants, one of the world's leading studios devoted exclusively to the design of water features that elevate architecture, landscape, and the human experience. Before founding Fluidity in 2002, Jim spent 2 decades exploring the meeting point of water, architecture, and urban design, consulting on landmark projects around the world from Canal City Hakata in Japan, Lisbon Expo 98, and Burj Al Arab in Dubai. To the Water Tower Place in Chicago, his work has graced icons such as New York's Hearst Building and the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania, and the mesmerizing Nancy Best Fountain in Dallas, each one a study in how water can choreograph light, space, and human emotion. This year marks the release of his book, Fountain Safari, a 400-page odyssey spanning from Imperial Rome to contemporary works, chronicling how fountains have reflected civilization's evolving relationship with nature, technology, and beauty. Jim's philosophy transcends mechanics. For him, water is choreography, psychology, and poetry in motion. He reminds us that when designed with intention, water doesn't just decorate space. It transforms it, connecting us back to something deeply human, intuitive, and timeless. Jim, it is an honor to welcome you to Crafting Human.
Thank you very much, Sharon. That was a very good overview.
Well, I'm glad I did it justice because I was reading and researching about the work you've done, and it is really, really impressive. So first, I just wanted to say congratulations on the publication of this book, Fountain Safari. And I just want to show this amazing piece of work to my listeners and my audience. It is such a beautiful composition of so many wonderful places in the world that you have clearly been to and that have obviously inspired much of your work. Can you share some of the inspiration behind your Fountain Safari?
Sure, absolutely. Really, it goes back to an awareness of how ignorant I was. I have a degree in architecture. And when you go to school in architecture or landscape architecture, interior design, you learn about history. Mm-hmm. And we take it for granted, actually, how much we learn in school. And we think about it almost every day as we work, the modern masters and the older works, the great classic masterpieces. But in the world of fountains, as it turns out, not many people know the evolutionary story in Western culture or in the East. And there hasn't really been a good history book the way in architecture or the other subjects, allied arts. There are numerous history books. So it was necessary for me to educate myself, do the research, visit all these places, which is why it took so long, and learn about their histories and build a kind of a chronology, an evolutionary picture of how things developed from irrigation to entertainment extravaganzas. And all of that actually influenced me quite a lot in the work. And my feeling is that all these old fountains, some of them very old, are actually still alive and meaningful.
So amazing.
To today. Yeah, it is amazing. Yeah, and to to discover how great they are and some of their little tricks that have been lost, really.
Yeah. Was there any aspect that really surprised you in your research?
Tons.
Really?
Yes.
Can you share some?
Oh, that's a good question. The one that comes to mind is actually a fountain that I'm not a fan of, but in front of the Pantheon in Rome, one of the most important buildings in the world, is a fountain in a plaza.
Yes, I know that. I've been there too,
Okay.
many times.
Well, this fountain is it's a Renaissance fountain, and it uses what people used to call grotesques, which are these like goofy, cartoon-like sculptures, and they're kind of ugly, in fact. And I never really understood why in the Renaissance artists were so interested in grotesques. Even Leonardo da Vinci was famous for doing these drawings of really ugly people he found. This is a fountain that's made in a way as ugly as possible, and I always hated the fountain. But it's a strange scale. But I forced myself to go look at it because one of the things I learned was that every fountain has some special thing to show you if you go look at it. So I went to go look at it, a fountain I didn't like, and there in it were these amazing like fish monsters, and coming out of their mouths were these amazing fan shapes with tiny little antennae of water that were spraying and doing this thing that actually were one of a kind and fantastic. And so little discoveries like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes bigger discoveries, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Is the Trevi Fountain nearby there? I can't remember because that's near the
Trevi
steps, right?
Trevi is quite close. It's maybe 3 minutes to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about
Trevi is a very great fountain. I used to poo-poo it, right, when I was a modern architect and I had no time for historical irrelevancies. But I went to go look at it, and then I went to go look at it again. And it's one of these kinds of things that every time you go, you see even more and more. And there's a fair statement. You could say, well, it was the Bellagio of its day, right?
Okay.
Because it really was a shocking extravaganza, entertaining, bold, fantastic. The way it commands that space is so great. The way it works into the architecture, and it embellishes the urban design. It draws you in. It establishes. It's a strange space. You take it away, it's a weird space.
Yeah.
But you put it there, it's one of the most memorable experiences in Rome.
Yeah.
So it's very great. It has a very beautiful cascade in the front, which culminates in a very, very nicely done waterfall. I mean, you can say, oh, I've done waterfalls, blah, 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 but this one is really good. And it also creates places on the side that you can get inside the fountain. There's a fountain in the fountain.
What makes a waterfall good?
Oh, well, I can tell you what makes them bad.
Okay, yes, I would love to know because I don't want to have a bad water feature in my front yard.
Right. Well, if you make a waterfall, one of the things that can happen if you build it wrong is that instead of the water going forward, it'll inflect backwards. It'll draw backwards and do this.
Oh.
There's a famous hotel in Las Vegas that has a golden fountain right in their lobby, and they're all misbehaving.
Oh, interesting.
They kind of boo-boo that. So that's one problem. Another problem that's irksome is when the water shivers like this. And there's a famous fountain in Hong Kong, a very big modern fountain done by a famous architect, and it shivers like this all day long. That's a classic mistake. It's an engineering, like high science kind of boo-boo, difficult to fix. So that's a mistake. But those are the mistakes. Try to get a good one. Well, you want a fountain, you want a waterfall that holds together. It wants to have a certain visual presence. If it's in the shade and it's clear, you can't see it very well. If it's curved, like the one at Trevi, thank you, and the sun is on the front, so it shines as the sun's path moves across. It shines really well, very well designed. And there's it's a stone weir. The edge of the waterfall is called a weir, and has just a little bit of texture. So when the water goes over, it has a little texturization to it. It makes kind of pearlescent finish. Very nicely done. So these things can lead to higher levels of excellence.
So much that I just wouldn't have even known had you not explained that and broken that down into these, details that, wow, and they knew how to do that back then? Do you think that was an intention back
Very
then?
intentional. One of the things I learned is how intentional some of these things were.
Oh,
There are some examples of accidents out there, but I'll tell you, most of it is very worked out. And during the Renaissance and the Baroque era, there were many fountains being built by Bernini and others, where the evolution of the quality of the water can be tracked, how good they got at it.
oh,
Yes.
interesting.
But earlier, like you said, oh, I didn't know about fountains. Well, it's true. Who would know? And there's a really central kind of an issue. We are drawn to water. It satisfies us almost immediately. And so when we're in the presence of a fountain,
What do you think that is, though? What is it about water that satisfies us so much?
it goes very deep into human psychology. And I am not the one to fully explain all of that.
Okay.
But I will say that it occupies a very primal area
Yeah.
in our back brains.
Yeah.
It's like flight or fight or get the water, shelter,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. It's very, very basic.
It's so interesting because, even in nature, when I go hiking, we want to go to the waterfall,
Sure.
right? And we want to go to the river, walk along the riverside, and you hear the trickle of the brook somewhere nearby, but you don't know where it is. And it just creates a whole different, there's something in our human psyche that just emotionally or like just viscerally, we just connect with it immediately.
Hearing it first is a really important observation.
Yeah.
And how you come upon it is something that you can design. And so the unfolding of the experience can be, let's say, organized into a fantastic, fulfilling experience. And that is part of the design process.
It just feels like so poetic.
It is.
It is.
It is.
I think it's the only way you can approach something like water in an intentionally designed water feature. I feel like the only way you could handle it is in a poetic way. Otherwise, it would just be so. Because the opposite of like beautiful cascading water is like this crashing waves that just like brings destruction with hurricane force or tsunamis, and you've got that, which is like the natural power and the force of water, and then you have these beautifully designed, intentional, quiet experiences, or just even the sound that creates some, connection that makes you feel like, oh, okay, I'm in a safe space. There's something about that, and water has so many different ranges of properties as well that.
I think with art, intentionality right now is one of the big categories.
Yeah.
It used to be authenticity, and we've worked through that. And now it's about really being intentional about as many aspects of it as you can. But together with that, I think, is that it not look staged or overly orchestrated. It must be natural to have a high mark. And so in a way, we obscure the intentionality so that it's not obvious.
Yeah.
But in fact, if it's to be effective, to attempt to be a masterpiece, then very little is left to chance.
Yeah. Love that. Wow. This whole level, and mastery is such a great word because, I really don't know many people who've pursued this mastery of water feature designing and understanding the properties of water and all of the unpredictability of it. How did you kind of reach this level of mastery, and what was it that drew you to? You said you were studying architecture originally. What led you into the world of water?
Okay, first I want to talk about the first part of your question, which is super interesting about mastery. There's nobody in my business that would claim to be a master. Water is so reactive to different environments and to, there's a funny thing where you could almost imagine that it has a spirit and it doesn't want to be controlled too much. If you try to push it around too much, it'll push back. If you try to demand something of it, well, it will foil you. And so we don't try to, we try to invite the water to do something positive, and we try to invite it in a constructive direction. But I'm not, I would not call myself a master. Of course, we try to create masterpieces with every work. We try to create all the love and beauty that can possibly be delivered. But the other thing, like, how did you end up in this? Was not my intention. Like a lot of people, I had something else in mind. I really wanted to be an architect. I really love architecture, and you know, the experience you have when you walk into a truly great building. It reorganizes your sense of the world, and you grow so much, and you have a powerful psychological experience, right? And it's unique. And the really great buildings, they deliver something so profound. But I was in graduate school, and I got a call from this little company called WET, that back then they were 3 years old, and they were working in the back of a church, like on doors, you know, for desks, and they were really smart people, super talented, and they were doing interesting things. And they just asked me to help draw for them. I used to do a special kind of drawing that not a lot of people were good at. And they got my name from somebody, and so
what is the special kind of drawing? Is it like a watercoloring?
Before computers drew our perspectives for us, we used to have to construct them by hand, and like literally like do all these angles and perspectives and get the horizon line and draw this up. And I was good at it because I'd been doing it since I was in like junior high.
Yeah.
And also, as you indicated, like watercolors. I painted in watercolors. When I was in high school, I had training in watercolors, so I could do a pretty good illustration of an idea. And I had some tutelage when I was a young architect under this man named Bill Hersey, who's not alive anymore. He was super talented, and so they found out about all that, and they got me to do that for them.
Okay. Wow.
I still do drawings like that. I don't construct them by hand like that anymore, but I still do illustrations and sketches all the time.
So then you went to work with WET, and then...
I went at first part-time and then full-time, and when I left, I was, you know, the design director. So it was a wonderful experience at WET. Very great projects and wonderful people to work with.
I mean, I would say, like, even though there's a love of architecture and the impact it can have on, you know, the psyche and all of this, I would say the same thing for water as well.
Yes, people do. Architecture is my first love, but water is experienced differently than architecture. Just like we experience these wonderful chairs differently, and we look at a painting differently. Water has its own apprehensions and meaning and aesthetic criteria.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I like how you talk about water. There's this kind of a respect for all of the different attributes and properties of water and the way you talk about it. You know, would you consider it kind of like a collaborator versus trying to like control it?
I've never said that, but I will say that. Yes, it's more of a collaboration.
Yeah.
I think when you work with any natural phenomenon in the arts, it is a collaboration. There is a back and forth. There is a respect. And there is discovery along the process. And the highest result is when you get to something you were not really going for. It turns out to be better than what you were going for.
Those are the best.
Which is just like collaboration. Yeah, that is the best.
Those are the best moments.
Yep.
Yeah. I was wondering, I mean, if we can talk a little bit about that unpredictability of the nature of water, what's been the process to understand how to achieve, you know, the desired result of a vision, right? And what has that been like? Because I imagine there's a lot of experimentation in the process.
Yes, there is. There's experimentation, and there's also what you walk into the project with, how much experience you've had before.
Okay.
So what I say to the other younger designers here is, whenever you see a fountain anywhere, or you go by a stream or the beach or anything, try to stop, find some time, put all your friends aside, and see what you could learn from that installation, because you can learn something from everything. And if you do this for a long time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, more, then you have a huge reservoir of experience to draw from.
Yeah.
But then when you're working on something, you have ideas and you put them together, and that's when you do some intentional experimentation, which is taking it to the next level, to the unseen before level. And we have, like a lot of water design groups, we have a studio just for doing experimentation, and if we do a good mock-up, which isn't like a thing, we'll try 4 or 5 different things all at once, and we will hopefully get to discovery.
Yeah. Has there ever been a moment where you felt like, wow, the water taught us something that we never thought we'd ever?
Sure.
Yeah?
I can tell you one from a long time ago. When I was at WET, I was working with one of their big geniuses, this guy, Alan Robinson, and we were in a lab, and we were looking at a waterfall, and he had made it just right, and there was light inside the waterfall, but there was no light on the water, and it was like, oh, look at that. Nothing's happening. But he put his hand in the pool and just like splashed droplets up onto the clear sheet, and the droplets were lighting up like lightning bugs. It was fantastic. And that was one of those aha moments, oh my gosh. And it was working just like those exit signs you see sometimes that are like clear sheets, and there's an edge light in the clear sheet, and the clear sheet doesn't light up from the light, but if you texturize it, then the exit sign or the textures light up.
Yes.
And in exactly the same way, this edge-lit water would light up. And so we had all these ideas about having like shower heads spraying on the waterfall to get this thing, and nobody's ever built it, but we had this great mock-up. One day, maybe.
One day, maybe. You never know, right? Well, it's interesting because just like what you're talking about, like the shift in the perspectives, and is there any project that comes to mind where you were particularly proud of, where you said, oh, this water feature could really like shift how somebody experiences this particular park or a building or because without the water, and kind of like you were saying with the Trevi fountain, right, where without it, it kind of is just like an awkward urban experience, right? But with the fountain there, it somehow has like changed how people experience the space. Is there anything you've designed that kind of comes to mind in that similar regard?
I would like to say several projects do that.
Yeah.
Probably the most obvious is the 2 fountains that were built in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which was a competition that we won with the landscape architects Olin. And I had met with the architect of the building about, 5 or 6 years before, who was a very famous guy, and he walked me around and he explained to me what the original idea was that he admitted never really worked, but there used to be these long, thin fountains on either side of the big staircase on Fifth Avenue. And they were dead spaces. Nobody ever, because they were originally conceived to be places for VIPs to be dropped off. But it was never used that way, and there was a lot of space. It was 700 feet long, on high value real estate.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a dud, and there were no trees or anything that like it was. So there was a competition that was funded by a donor, and our scheme won, and we placed 2 fountains that were part of like changing the environment and lifting it up and inviting sunlight into the water and
Yeah.
bringing the trees and all that greenery and the warmth that comes with that kind of life force, and tables and chairs and more that was not built. There was going to be a cafe, there was going to be other things, another entrance just for school kids. There was a lot that didn't get built for practical reasons. But the fountains tell two stories. One story is all about the abstraction that is in art, which the museum holds this great art collection, the largest in America. And the other story that the fountain tells is about how artful nature is. And it goes back and forth between the two subjects. And I don't know if anybody understands all that, but it's there.
Well, now they will.
Yeah.
Now they
right.
will. And I have been to the Met a number of times, especially having studied in New York as well. So but now I'm going to be more aware of, oh, this is the experience that Jim was talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. There was this, as I was doing this, preparing for our conversation, I saw this article that you had written advocating for saving the Polk Park water feature. What I really loved about, there was a statement you made in there that said you believe that each city is unique and marvelous and that our urban fountains are the exclamation points in a city. What did you mean by an exclamation point in the city?
Okay. Can I use another example as a metaphor and get to it?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's a wonderful book, and at the moment, the author's name is eluding me, and I apologize to her and to you. But she says that the aqueducts bring water into Rome, and then there's piping underground that are like the branches of the tree, and the aqueducts are like the trunk and the branch of the tree, and the water pops out like the fruit of the tree. Like that's her statement about the fountains in Rome. And that's a beautiful, amazing story. But more generally, urban design has a structure, and every city is different from every other one, and all these cities all over the world are all uniquely wonderful places to visit. And the urban design is made up of things like streets and squares and parks and urban buildings and monuments, and they make up the urban fabric in all kinds of different geometries. When you come to a place that's a significant place and you see the fountain, it is the exclamation part. It says, it's great being in this city, and this is a great moment in the city.
I feel like Europe does that so well, especially like the piazza concept with the water features in the center. And I mean, and there's so many other cities that do that, but that was just like what popped in my mind first, right? Like you have this whole concept of like, people just seem to gravitate to water features.
Well, they do, and in this particular case, there's two reasons why they gravitate. Because one of the things I say in the book is that that the fountains they landmark our most important places, okay?
That's so true.
So if you go to the space, that's the first thing a fountain does. They'll say, oh, it's symbolizing this great woman who did a great thing. That's actually the second thing it's doing. The first thing it does is marks a place. And then it tells its story, right? And so you're going to the fountain. First, you're going to the great place. And then you go to the fountain. It emphasizes the power of that place.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, and I think you kind of just answered my question, because I was going to say, what is it? Or maybe you can elaborate on that more. Of what do you think is the power, behind? Like, why do you think there's so much power behind water?
Okay, there are a group of reasons. The first one is this mysterious psychological depths, which maybe in the future they'll pin that down, or maybe never. It's possible, like really great art, that the deepest parts of human psychology will remain a mystery. And water's right there at the very bottom. Okay, but there are other things. Water is connected to what we consider to be beautiful, right?
Definitely.
I used to say this thing, and it's probably bad manners, but I would say that the most important, the most beautiful thing in the world is light. Like sunlight is number one, okay? And then I would say number two is water, because it's alive and it sparkles and it's all this life and blah, 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 blah. And then number three is everything else. I really do believe that water is a higher level of materiality than that great looking cat or whatever, that wonderful old tree, or the smell of the dirt around the roots of a sassafras, right? All that stuff is wonderful, but there's this higher quality in water. And that aesthetic, that transporting very high caliber delivery is one of the reasons why fountains have such power over us. Even if we sit next to them, we immediately forget them, and we think about life, and we call our friend, and whatever. Water is acting on us, and we're sitting there for a reason.
It's so true. Like you can be there, you search it, you go out to search for it, right? You'll seek out the water feature, and then you sit there, and there's something happens in its presence that makes you feel more connected to yourself maybe, or a thought leads to someone else, and like you said, you pick up the phone and you call them.
That's exactly right. That's one of the things that water does, is it distracts us just enough that it opens us up, and our minds go on these different channels, like a daydream, or like when you relax and suddenly you think of what's really important without trying to.
Yeah. It's so like water though to do that too, in like an actual physical way, right? And then also in a more or less kind of nuanced way that we're talking about with this mysterious human psyche.
Well, it's true, and it's very popular to talk about to different people and say, oh, what is your superpower? And we use that term now.
Yeah.
One of water's superpowers is this psychological opening up.
Gosh, it's so true. It's kind of like you're right. It's like how art and music affects us. We don't really know why something moves you to tears until you start thinking about it, and oh, it reminds me of this thing, or like it's, and you know what? Actually, maybe it has to do with like how it activates the senses. There's like a sensory, but I almost feel like there's this like a sixth sense. I don't know, like you kind of get transported in a way though, with the experience of water.
Okay, you mentioned music. That's very important. Music has an advantage over the other arts, right? Music we all feel, and we interpret it emotionally, and it brings all this identity and powerful experience.
Yeah.
Music is especially powerful. Color can do that, but somehow color is not quite as powerful as music is. Water has some of the same characteristics that music does in how it operates on us. It's not as colorful as music, but along the same lines.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because it evokes a different response, right? The gentle little babbling brook versus like the rushing waterfall. Two different kinds of water, and then different responses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I love that. What do you think so when you're designing, for your projects, do you go into it with a certain, maybe an idea in mind is it the response that you're trying to evoke, or is it the place that informs, or maybe it's both?
Okay, excellent question. Okay, here we are in Los Angeles, right? And you as you well know, it's a very deep movie and TV and music industry environment, and so sometimes we use metaphors from that world. Steve McQueen used to say, "I'm not an actor, I'm a reactor," and he was a very good actor. And what he meant was, and I'm connected to all this. I'm using my personality and my gifts to to react and have authenticity through that reaction. When a project is brought to us, the first thing we do is we try to study its environment. We try to study where it is, what it's about, what people are expecting of it, all these, what other things that's going to react with, that's going to be around it. Before we think of an idea, we want to make sure we understand the context, because we're being like Steve McQueen. We're going to be connecting through reacting.
Oh, interesting. It's a really
Or like a painter, painting, building up layers of colors, you're changing it until finally they're all in a balance.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You start, you may sketch out something, but then you have to react to how it affects what's around it, and then, the frame or the space.
Yeah.
And there's a back and forth.
I want to talk a little bit about now how kind of your studio emphasizes sort of this, this idea of like interdisciplinary teams, and then like a historical kind of precedent with, all this like kind of contemporary new technology and integration. But I'm wondering, how does kind of this age-old art of like the craftsmanship and material choices contribute to like the experience of water features?
Okay. I want to start with the first part of your question about the studio. I don't work here like master apprentice environment. There are people who are very mature that I work with. I've been working with Tom Yankelaitis for more than 30 years. Karen Nadakardi, more than 20 years.
Wow, such
Dolly,
a long-term.
Wisco, like almost 20 years. Chunmoy, I've been working with him for 16 or 17 years. So there's a lot of very mature people in the studio. And then there are younger people too, and there are mid-level people. All of them are contributing to the work. They all contribute meaningfully. You were asking about these models earlier. Some of the youngest people in the studio do that better than the rest of us, and their contributions are quite significant.
Yeah.
So
and the 3D printing and the testing.
yeah, all of that, and all kinds of things we do, like virtual animations. All of this stuff require people at all levels.
Yeah.
But you were talking about craftsmanship, okay? And the craftsmanship is we look at it in two different ways. There's the craft of the water. Getting details, just like you're tailoring your suit. You try to craft the water, and you're trying to get to a certain thing where its character is exactly fitted into its place, just right. Like that's a certain craftsmanship, like a good detail. And then under that, I would say the substrate to that are things like stone, glass, metal, concrete. These building materials that you see, sometimes in very complex assemblies. And we typically hide the fasteners so it's as simple as possible, beautifully made. I was in a museum in Houston once, and they built these things, they're called vitrines, which are cases, right? Cases for showing things. And it was extremely well made, how the vitrines were put together, and how like hidden lights were shining on jewelry. And that is a big influence on me, how well the vitrines were made. And I try to make fountains that are built as well as those vitrines. Very finely detailed.
Yeah.
The two fountains in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, they are built like vitrines with granite.
Yeah, yeah, wow.
And bronze.
What do you think differentiates a water feature from being just a generic water feature to being a soulful water feature?
Soulful. Good word. Good question. I thought you were going to say great, but no, you said soulful. Well, soulfulness is not an accident, really. It arises from the intention of the people working on it. And if the intention is to strive that high, it comes from that.
Yeah.
Now that may be very abstract and has to do with beginnings or what's in the heart of the person doing the work. When you look at it at the end, what is soulful about this or that? I think it has to do with connecting with water's deepest content, which has to do with its bringing of life. And I'm going to say, like on the fly, that soulfulness is when you connect strongly with water's power in bringing life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because the soul is life, right? Yeah. I like that. Do you think water features respond to or reflect cultural narratives in like the region of the world? Or do you think it's more like, do you think it's like more that the water features just all have like a universal emotional language that people respond to? Or do you think it's more of like the culture that it's responding to, that people are responding to?
Okay, very good question. This is like a classic question. There are certain things about water that are universal, but not that many things. Most of the water features that you're likely to see are being influenced by numerous cultural markers, expectations, requirements, or just inspirations. The development of water expression in the East is totally different than water expression in the West.
Oh, can you expand on that?
Sure. In the Western culture fountain, let's say something in Spain or England or Italy or France, or here in America, fountains are activators of space, and they are celebratory monuments, and they are let's say representing life, okay? And that's the Western culture. And they do symbolism and all these things like, here it is, right, the fountain. And it's got a rim around it, and it's focused, and it's doing this, and here's a public space, and that's where the horses go, and there's the famous building, and there's the church. Like, that's Western culture. But if you look in the East, and this is my interpretation since I didn't grow up in that culture, but in the Eastern cultures, water is not a symbol, it is itself. It's not a symbol. Water is not a symbol of life, it is life. And they didn't make fountains like this. They brought water in more naturalistically. The lake is the fountain, or the channel water from that reservoir down to that through this stream that did this, that is the fountain. And it's very, you might say, naturalistic, but that's a Western picture. It is part of a natural environment, and it is the life part.
So the meaning of the feature is really driven, you think, by the culture, or the meaning, or like the representation, the physical representation of it.
How it was developed and what it means and how we interpret it are all culturally motivated. Now, there is this deeper thing about water. We desire it, and it is intertwined with life. That is common to all cultures.
Sure.
It is visually beautiful.
Yeah.
It sounds good to us. That's common to all cultures. But any physical manifestation almost always involves these other influences, cultural influences.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that, and understanding just the similarities and then the differences, and there's so much about the different parts of the world that I still haven't been to, so it's interesting to hear kind of how you've seen the differences of how.
I've been very lucky, Sharon. got to go to a lot of these places for work. So because
Yeah.
who could afford to travel all over the world like this? But I would go to one place and I would take a day and do this, or I'd go somewhere, take 2 days, or I would take a vacation and I would go where I would do like a fountain safari, and I would plot out before I went, what famous fountains I would go see, and so. But work really took me to a lot of these places, or gave me the chance to do it, and so. I got to do in just 20 years what might have taken 50 otherwise.
Well, and I love that it's all like here, it's documented, and these are your own photographs as well. So it's remarkable. I'm really excited to take a look through it after we have our conversation. Do you think in a world that's like increasingly concerned about climate change, water scarcity, and how do you see water features evolving, kind of addressing or maybe making a mark right in that place, addressing some of these concerns?
Okay, that's a really important question, and we all expect that design acknowledge reality, and that today water is scarce. We're talking about drinking water. It's still the case that 3/4 of the planet is covered in water, and the Pacific Ocean is almost half the Earth,
Yeah.
and there's a huge amount of water here, huge. But drinking water is a very small percentage of that,
Yeah.
and that's a precious commodity. And drinking water is what fills most fountains, and so we need to be respectful about that and treat it respectfully, and we need to design to that. Okay, so we design fountains now that use as little water as possible, and there are lessons from the past on this. The water at the Alhambra, for instance, which I mentioned before, is how to get the most poetry out of the least amount of water, right? And you would compare that to, say, in Italy, the Villa d'Este, or again, the Trevi, or one of the other great Italian fountains that are like the opera, and that it doesn't use the same measuring stick. However, all those aquifers were bringing water into Rome because Rome is a dry place too.
Yeah.
And in that environment, water, because of its scarcity, water was used as a celebratory medium for expressing the triumph over the scarcity. So Trevi was bold and exciting because we brought in water from this fabulous aquifer, the Aqua Virginis or something like that. I forget the name of it. It's a very, very good source of water, plentiful water. Lots of water was brought to Rome, celebrated by Trevi Fountain, and in a very vigorous way. We could do the same when we also vigorously resolve our problem.
Yeah.
They did then. We need to do it again today.
Yeah.
But until then, we still celebrate life. We still, there is nothing that is brought to a public space that brings life better than water. There are fabulous art pieces, there's wonderful urban design, beautiful planting schemes. Nothing can replace what water brings. And so we still use water, but we do it in as carefully as possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes the carefulness is hidden. Sometimes it still looks very celebratory. You wouldn't know that it's miserly at the same time, but it is.
It's interesting. Well, that's and I love that. Well, and so what do you envision kind of happening, or do you see any changes maybe for water features
I
and
see a lot.
designs in the next 10 years or so, 10 to 20 years?
Or the next 40 years.
Okay. Oh.
In my book, I theorize Western culture's evolution of the development of water, which goes from irrigation, which even then was very crafted, and I would say it was very, what was the word you used earlier? Not spiritual, you soulful. Those early irrigation ditches are soulful. They are great. They are great. That was one of the first things I discovered. I couldn't believe it, how they felt.
Really?
Yes.
That's so surprising, something so functional.
Exactly. I think today an engineer might draw some lines in their office and hand it over, and some contractor would bid and get the lowest bid, and some guys would build it out, and they would go, there's no soulfulness in any of that.
Yeah.
But back then, they had a different process, and they knew that what they were drawing was the life of the village, and this was really important, and
yeah.
they didn't just draw something mechanical. There was a feeling in how it was designed, and then it was a feeling in how it was built, and there's a feeling in how it's bringing the water to the date palms or banana plants or whatever, and there's a feeling to all of that, and it's unmistakable, Sharon. When you go and see that, it's unmistakable. And there's some of those very, very old things are still alive today.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, in places in Spain, in Albuquerque.
Are these like archaeological sites that you went to?
Sometimes they're just right there in the open.
Oh, interesting. You know, people could just miss it too, huh? If they didn't know what it was.
You could, but if you have a little bit of an antenna sticking out, you'll pick up on it.
I love that. Wow. Well, and as we kind of wrap up the conversation,
Sorry, but you were asking about the future, and I didn't tell you.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So there are certain sins that we do today. One of our sins today is we use chemicals like chlorine to treat the water to keep the algae out, make it safe for people to touch, all this stuff. But that's actually a sin. It's not a good chemical to be messing about with.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal with it when it goes away, and it's a problem environmentally. And so in the future, we will maneuver our way out of that. I think that one of the things that was invented a few hundred years ago was the water garden with beautiful lotuses or water lilies and such, you know, like paintings of Giverny, right? The beautiful things like that.
Yeah.
I think that in the near future, we're going to see a new generation of those kinds of things. And we've worked on those. A new generation of water gardens that are beautiful in the modern era or in the next era. And there's also things that have been developed now for about 100 years, and especially in the last 30 years, like choreographic water. That has a whole new generation in front of it. And places that change, sometimes they're dry, sometimes they're very wet, sometimes they're alive. And they're not dry for too long, but they're dry for enough to really feel the water when it comes back. And we're interconnecting with a new kind of architecture, which is bigger and stronger, clearer. The water can connect with that in delicate ways to connect us to the deep truths of the earth, not papering it over with some distraction. And so the next few years, the mission we have here is about that.
Oh, I love that. It's so soulful.
It is soulful.
Yeah.
That business back there, chapter 1,
Yeah.
we're trying to bring that all the way back up to chapter 8.
I love that. And you know what? When you were talking about these natural ponds becoming the water feature, I actually had a conversation with a landscape architect recently, and we were talking about how he's bringing that back into some of his projects in Europe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And because it's part of what the land wants it to be. And, you know, creating swimming pools that are like that, you know, versus the chlorinated pools. And some, I mean, in the luxury resort space, you know, there's a provision of both to allow, you know, these guests to be able to have the natural experience should they want that, or the more, you know, contained, I don't know what's the right word for that, but the more controlled experience.
Sure.
You know, what's interesting is that and I do agree with you, I do see that in our future, but it's a returning to the past. Your chapter 1, like you're saying, you know, and bringing that back.
I think that's important. We need to remember what we've lost. And it doesn't mean repeating historical motifs. It just means remembering and valuing on their own terms those things that should be part of the world we're trying to build.
Yeah. I love that. Well, as we wrap up our conversation, I just have some rapid fire questions for you. If there was one water feature, natural or man-made, you wish you designed but didn't, which would it be?
I wish I had designed the boat fountain at the bottom of the Spanish Steps in Rome.
Oh.
It's very great in a way that took me many years to figure out.
What did you figure out?
It was done by Bernini's father with a little bit of Bernini's help when he was a young man. And what I figured out was the reason people love it so much, the reason there's always a crowd around it, the reason it's so beautiful is that it is very gentle, and its edges are low, and it welcomes you to its edge, and it does something beautiful. It does many beautiful things for you. It tells a story you don't quite understand, but it has to do with this welcoming, unprepossessing, comforting quality. And that is such a beautiful, human, loving gesture that I wish I had done that. I wish I'd come up with that idea instead of that explanation.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note of that the next time I go. Yeah.
You have to sit there and forget everything else, and it will answer your questions. That fountain is a good question answerer. And did you know that fountain was there 75 years before the Spanish Steps?
Really?
They showed up later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were.
I love sitting on the Spanish Steps.
Yeah.
And just watching all of that happening.
One of the greatest urban theater designs ever made. Yeah.
Oh, was that the original intent?
Well, yes, it is not just a staircase. It is a place to hang out and be and overlook, and
Yeah.
it is, and it does that better than all the other versions that almost are as good. It is the best at that. It is the best. It's better than Tony Garnier's staircase in the Paris Opera House. It's better than all the others. It is the best.
All right. Exclamation. Underscore.
Yes.
What book or resource outside of architecture and design has influenced your thinking about water or the human experience? Outside of architecture. and
Moby
design.
Dick.
What is it?
Moby Dick.
Oh.
Melville's Moby Dick. This book was inspired by three things, okay, book-wise, right? Moby Dick, in the way it's made of many, many chapters, each one with its own subject. You don't have to read this in order, just pick up any space, okay? Darwin's Origin of Species, in how this deals with its subject, and extreme detail, comprehensive, and Donald Judd's art criticism articles, which are terse and to the point and without any flower at all. Pure critical knowledge. So those three are very important to me and in the creation of this book. But I would say of the three of them, the most easily inspiring is Moby Dick.
Wow. That was not expected. I didn't know what to expect, but that was not it. Okay. Which body of water or water feature would you say best represents the spirit of Jim Garland?
I don't know if I can answer that. You mean of the projects that we've done?
Just any water body or water feature in the world.
Oh. Well, if I were to give you an answer to that, it would show how limited I am.
Or one aspect of the spirit of Jim Garland.
I don't know that I'm a worthy subject, but I would say that if I had to pick out a project that I liked, And I would do this with, I wouldn't want to offend anybody that I did it and I found for them and I didn't pick theirs, you know, because I really do like a lot of those projects, quite a lot. But if I would go back in time, when I was still working at WET, the last project I did, I had the luxurious moment of having an entire week of not having to think about anything else. Usually I was working on 20 things at once, but I had this one week, I didn't have to think about anything else but one thing. My last project there was what you might call a cascade at Water Tower Place in Chicago, which was, water had to go down between these escalators. And you think about it, okay, the water would go down from top to bottom. So that's like automatic.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, this is wet design, so we're going to make water go up, of course. Well, that's a cliche. So we're not going to do that. So instead, there is a series of cantilever trays with holes in them, okay? And water would flow down these holes in these perfectly made vase-like waterfalls. And so they're glassy, and they almost look like sculptures. And people going up the escalators, they're always touching them. Like, oh my God, look at that. It looks like glass, but it's water, because the laminar effect is perfect. And then, but up from inside, there's little marbles of water that jump up, and they come down, and if they hit a pool, they would splash on you. But the waterfalls act as splash guards, and the splash hits the water, and it keeps flowing down. And so nobody gets splashed on by these marbles. And they go up and down in different patterns, and so sometimes the water's marching up, and sometimes it's tumbling down in the marble patterns, and sometimes it's just jumping around doing all kinds of exciting things. This design fits into a space that was carefully designed once before by another famous architect who did these escalators in just such a way. I'm very fond of that project. Yeah. 30 years later, I'm still very fond of that project. And I could point to these. These are fabulous projects. Any of these have this ingredient, but there's something about the humble beginnings that sometimes you carry.
Yeah, yeah. Jim, this has been a really inspiring conversation, and I'm so grateful that you participated and joined us and shared with the world how, unbeknownst to so many of us who encounter different water features and designs, that it's all this intentional, soulful experience that's been designed by people like yourself and your team. So thank you.
You're welcome. I would say that on that point, I think the anonymity of fountains, and you wouldn't know anybody designed them or if they were even designed, I think that's okay. I don't think any of us fountain makers need to be famous, or the fountain's no better if it's famous. I like the anonymity.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate this chance of speaking with you, Sharon. I think all your questions have been really great, and thank you. This was a beautiful experience. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Thanks for listening. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to join our creative tribe. Follow, like, and subscribe to help this community grow. Your support helps me to tell the stories of the creatives who bring soul to our world and create meaningful experiences. Thank you for being here and keeping the circle of creativity alive and connected. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you.